Okay, so now we have to expand our horizon a little bit about angles. We've done 30, 60, 90, 45, and talked about sine and cosine and tangent ratios within those triangles. And that's really the heart of trig. Tri means three, and trigonometry is the metric, or is the measure of three-sided figures, triangles in particular. So what we want to talk about now are also these types of angles, positive angles, negative angles, coterminal angles. If you look at this first one here, there's a little a, alpha. A positive angle, that is a positive angle A. As an example, that could be something like, that angle A could be like 135 degrees, something like that. Now here's the real key. If you can remember that something that lays flat, so if I open the angle all the way up and went flat, that'd be 180 degrees over here. That actually is the real foundation for what angles are. 180 degrees is open, flat, or straight across. Now, this also implies, since we're rotating like that, that 0 degrees is straight to the right. So 0, 180, and then there's 135 there in the middle, the one that we're supposed to find. If that gives you a sense, and then remember we just did the unit circle where straight up is 90 degrees. So hopefully that gives you a sense of scale of these positive angles. There's 90 is straight up, 0 is straight to the right, and then we got the 135, kind of halfway between 90 and 180, and then 180 degrees is facing straight to the left. We'll go further than that as well. You can also measure angles in the negative direction. Again, 0 is straight to the right, that's 0 degrees, but to go negative, you kind of balance it against 180 would be halfway, the other side facing the opposite direction of 0 degrees. And then just a little bit past that, that might be, 200 degrees. But I went to the clockwise direction. That's actually negative in angles. Isn't that bizarre? And so angles is the way they're measured. To go clockwise is negative from 0 degrees, and to go counterclockwise is a positive angle. Now the idea of a positive and negative coterminal angle is that for any angle, there's always a positive way to get there. Let's use 135 as an example for alpha. And I'm using that degree symbol up there. It's kind of the same as temperature degrees, but we use it for measurement of a kind of a sweeping arc. And then this other one, I should do a different color than that. Let's pick up another one. Let's go, I don't know, blue, how to do the trick. If I do this blue negative angle on the other side, it's a counterpart to that one. Together, these two angles would make a full circle, kind of if you put them together, if you think of them as, kind of stuck to each other. They make a full circle if you kind of add them together, which would be 360 degrees. The top one's 135, and the bottom one is the rest of it then to 360. But we do it as a negative angle. So I don't know if you want to think of it this way also here. Remember, this would be negative 90 here, and then we get over here, and then we're at 180, and then we go from there up to this 135 degree angle. Well, there's something about 135 degrees I should tell you. It really is right in the middle of 90 and 180. So if you think of how that splits that angle in half, it splits 90 degrees in half. 135 degrees is right down the middle of 90 and 180 degrees. So it's like 45 degrees, but in that kind of the upper left-hand corner we call the second quadrant. So one way to measure that, if I go backwards, go 180 back to flat, and then a little bit more, 45 more to be exact. This is actually negative 225 degrees in the opposite direction. So remember, positive is rotating counterclockwise, negative is clockwise. So negative 225 and positive 135 degrees. They're both pointing you in the same direction. So we call them coterminal. Any two angles that end you facing the same direction. Now, if we realize we're swinging from the origin, we're spinning around, we could spin around a lot of times and end up, it's kind of like playing the game where you're spinning a spinner. There's an infinite number of spins you can make, and there's all these different ways you could land facing that same direction. We call those coterminal landings, when you land in exactly the same direction. So at the end, there's two positive coterminal angles as an example. Think of the first one as like a really, really big around and 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 around. Here we go, right there. That's 360 degrees I just went. That's a full rotation. And then a little bit past that. If I call this angle if I say this angle goes right down the middle again, it in normal measurement, we've already dealt with this, and let's say it's 45 degrees, that alpha is my normal 45 degree positive angle. Well, the blue one is more than that. It's 360 that got me around and 45 more. So you have to think of 360 and 45, that's 405 degrees. But they both land you facing the same direction, and we call them coterminal angles. So that's the idea of positive, negative, and then going around a circle and to give you some direction. Now, one of the things we also have to remember is a different way of measuring altogether. So what I'm going to do here in a second, I'm going to pop up one of those unit circles, because it's actually a nice place to put in all these different degrees. And we're going to talk about the difference between radians and degrees. Okay, so we're back to that unit circle. Let's talk about angles we know. I'm going to just mark little arrows pointing, because think of a degree measure as just opening a certain span. There's your 30 degrees. I'll put it in those little circles there to help you out. But that's 30 degrees like we talked about before. Then straight up is 90 degrees. So we're going to keep spinning around, and we're going to do those positive angles. Then it's 180 degrees to face straight to the left. And we can actually continue by 90s if you like. We can do 270 facing straight down, and then 360 all the way around, or 0. They're actually facing the same direction. So 360 or 0. Okay. So that's what we call degree measures, and then we can have all the ones in between. And I'm going to put those in there because I think it's helpful to kind of know how to count by those. But the first thing I'm going to count by is actually 30-degree increments. Okay, so we had 30. That's our first one. And then what we can count by 30 is then there's 60. So I'm going to go 60. And then if you go 30 more, you're at 90, as we all know. And then 30 more after that leaves you to 120. Then 30 after that again to 150, and then 30 more then to 180, as we see right there. Okay, we'll just keep making our way around. After 180, add 30. Yeah, you have to tell me if I mess up. Definitely counting is not always my strength. 210 there, right? And then 30 more from there, 240. 30 more from there, 270. So this counting by 30 is important because it's actually, if you notice the size of the leap we're taking, 230 more, 300. 30 more. You notice I'm skipping the 45s, the one right down the middle, because it passes it. 30 more takes you to 330, and then 30 more to 360. We're back where we started. Those are 30s making your way around. You can count by 60s as well, but what it's going to do is duplicate a lot of what we already did. So I'll go back with something a little darker, different color here, see if I can work it out. All right, let's go orange. But there's 60, and then 120. And then a 180, counting by 60s. But look at that size difference. It's obviously 230s you can see in there. So just keep an eye on how big that is, because the more you kind of recognize the size of 60 degrees, the easier it is to make it. Then there's 240, right, 60 more, and then 300, and then all the way back to 360. So those are the 60s. Now the next one, the 45s, I'll make those in something that stands out as well. Light blue ought to do it. But they are nice because they all split down the middle. So here's 45. 90 degrees is a 45 from there. 45 more, we're at 135. And then down below, so we can pull that off right here. That's, I'm sorry, I skipped one. 180, 45 after that, and then 225. 45 more, I'm back at 270. 45 more here. What are we in there? 315. And then finally back to 360. But that's just knowing where those angles lie. That's going in the circle, 0 facing to the right, and then making degree increments all the way to 360, all the way around. Just a sense of scale. Now that's degree measurement. There is another way that we count around this unit circle, and it's called radians. But I'm going to let you settle with that, and then I'll come back and we'll do radians in the next video.